Welcome to RC Video Reviews. Radiomaster recently released some new DIY switches. They've got a toggle switch and a two-position switch, and they're very easy to install in the radio. So today, I love momentary switches. I'm going to show you how to install this momentary switch in a TX16s Mark II. And if you're rocking a Mark I, I'm going to show you how to install it in one of those radios as well. It's not too hard, just a little bit more work. Okay, so Radiomaster has a couple of different versions of these switches. The one I'm going to use in the radio today is just a momentary switch. It's just like the big one up top. If you have a momentary switch up top, you click that, it's just a toggle and it lets go. So that's the one I want to use today, and I'll show you how I'm going to configure it and use it in my radio. They also have another style that's just a latching switch, and it behaves just like a two-position toggle. That's all it is, really, is a two-position toggle switch. So you've got two states on and off, and you can change the colors too. So if you want all red or all black or some mix, you can mix and match. They've got different options on their website. I will put links in the description for these switches if you want to go get some for yourself. But with that out of the way, let's go ahead and get into the radio. We'll start out by removing these two screws on top. And these just hold the antenna plate on the radio, so we'll take those two off. And the other thing we need to do on the sides is take the grips off. And I can tell you guys, because I'm in my radio so much, be very careful with your leather strips. Don't torque them too much. The rubber underneath is fine, no problem. But what happens is if you torque them a lot, what ends up happening is the rubber likes to separate from the leather. So I've already replaced a couple of my grips, but I don't, it's really not, I don't really put the fault on Radiomaster for that, because I take my radios apart so much, it's just ridiculous. At any rate, if you have the leather grips, just take them off gently. Don't torque them too much. Okay, with the antenna top plate screws removed, I'm just going to let them fall out up top. And I do want them out because I don't want them falling down inside the radio while I'm working. The next thing we need to do is remove 4 screws from the back cover. You've got 2 up top right here, 1, 2, and then 2 down here on the bottom, 1, 2. So 4 screws come off the back cover. I always get asked when I use this tool that I have in my hand, this is called a wow stick. I'll put a link in the description for this too if you want one. I love it for working on radios. It's not a high torque device, so I wouldn't use it to screw something together that requires some degree of torque. But I've used it to build quads. I've used it on my radio. I can't even tell you how much. And it just, makes the job a little faster. Anyway, it's called a wow stick. And then finally, we need to take the battery out. And I've got the Race Day Quad 5,000 milliamp hour battery in my production radio. So that comes out. I do want to point out where I'm going to place the switch. On the TX16s Mark II, Radiomaster put a hole in the back of the radio, and they put a plug in. So here's the plug, and it's just a cover for the hole. That's all it is. And that hole, it's almost like they knew what they were doing, right? So that hole is meant for these toggle switches. So anyway, I've got the cover released, and I'm going to pull it off. We do have to separate the wiring. Remember, there's a 3.5 mil headphone jack in the back there, so we just have to take that off. All right, to install the switch, we'll need the back plate and the switch, of course. But before I do, I want to show those of you who are using a Mark I what the dimensions are. So if you want to drill this out for yourself, you know what you need to do. So regarding the dimensions, it's about 0.47. We'll call it 4.6. So that's about 7/16 of an inch for a bit. And if you're using metric, you need about 11.8 mils for your drive or your bit. So maybe 12 mil would be fine. So 12 mil bit or 7/16, that should get the job done for you. All right, for the switch, there's a little rubber gasket. I'm going to use that on the outside of the radio. So I'll feed the lead through the gasket and put the gasket up against the switch, and then feed the lead through the back of the case and just drop it down into the hole. Like I said, it's almost like they knew what they were doing, right? Like they knew this was coming. And then the last thing we'll do is take the lock nut and put the lead through the nut, and then just spin that onto the switch down here in the case. Okay, that's it. The switch is now installed in the case, and all we have to do is connect the lead to the motherboard. There are 2 places on the motherboard you can plug this switch in. You can either plug it in this port or this port. These are SJ and SI. I don't know which one's which, but when we get in the radio, I'll show you how to figure it out. So I'm just going to put it here on the left because it looks like it'll be easier to get to that one. What you want to do is make sure you line up the clips. So there's 2 little holes on this header, and you want to make sure that the 2 little clips on this JST plug go into those holes. That'll make sure you get your polarity correct. So just make sure they're right, and then slide that little connector into that header, and that's all you've got to do. The next thing I'll do is connect my 3.5mm headphone jack on the back. And in case you're wondering, or if you noticed, if you're eagle-eyed, yes, I left the front speaker disconnected. I don't like the noise that comes out of that front speaker, so I just leave it off. I use the back speaker only on this radio. And that's it. So we'll put the cover back on, and then we'll put the battery back in. And the reason I'm doing this is because before I button everything up, I want to make sure it works. So put the battery in, set that in its spot. And all we have to do now is tell the radio that that switch exists. So I'll press the system button, and I'm going to go over to the hardware page, and you can see down here on the bottom as you scroll down, there are switches, and we're going to look for SJ and SI, and I'm going to turn them both on, and I'm going to set them both to a toggle. So there's a toggle, and there's a toggle. So I'll turn those on, and now we should go into the calibration option for keys, and with that, we can press the button. And as I press the button on the back, I'm pressing it, press the button on the back, you can see the little arrow for SJ moving. So the pin that I plugged it into is SJ. So SJ is down when I press the button and up when I let go. So SJ is the pin header on the left-hand side of the radio, as you're looking at it from the back. Okay, now I'm going to show you how I'm going to use this, but first I'm going to turn the SI switch off because I don't have it. I don't want any hardware errors or warnings, so I'm going to turn SI back off. And we'll just set that to none. And there we go. Now all of our hardware is set. Now I'll show you how I'm going to use this little gadget. I'm going to press the system button and go over to global functions. And in global functions, where I have my clock reset or my timer reset, I'm going to use that switch for a timer reset. Right now I use that on T5 up. So I'm going to change that now by clicking on my switch, and I'm going to scroll up to SJ down. And I'll select SJ down, and there we go. So now my timer reset should work. If I start flying and my timer starts counting down, if I press the button on the back, it resets the timer back to 7 minutes. Okay, there's all kinds of different things you could do with this switch. I use mine for a timer reset, but you could also use it for instant trim. You could use it to increment your timer if you want. You could use it to change global variables. You can do anything you want with a momentary switch on these radios. You could use it for a screenshot, whatever. It all works. Very cool stuff. So that's on the Mark II. Let me show you what it looks like on the Mark I. I've already taken the back off, and I'm going to do the same thing. This one is the 2-position switch, and I'm going to plug that into the same header. That'll be right here on the left-hand side. Make sure that the header alignment is correct. The latches go down. So if you're curious and you need to see, the black and red go inboard and the open pins go outboard on this particular one. And then on the other side, if you want to use the switch, you flip it. It's the other way around. So anyway, there's the toggle switch installed. Now I'm not going to leave this installed, so I'm not going to drill a hole in the case or anything. I just want to show you that it works. Okay, with the radio turned on, we'll press System, go over to the hardware page, and then go to the bottom, and we'll look for switches right there. And we'll go down to the bottom, and we'll add SJ as a 2-position switch. So there we go, 2-position switch. And when I escape out of there, we'll go down to keys, and we'll press the button, and we should see the SJ arrow go up, and it does. And I'll press it and latch it, and it goes down, and it does. So there you go. That's basically like a 2-position switch. You have an on and an off. All right, guys, that's all I've got on how to install these DIY switches from Radiomaster. I hope you liked the video, and I hope it helps you understand different things you can come up with to use these switches on your radio and how easy it is to install them. There's really nothing to it. Hey, if you like this kind of content, make sure you hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you know new videos hit the channel. That's all I've got for today. Take it easy, and go fly something. Hey, if you like the work I do here on RC Video Reviews, please consider joining me on Patreon. For about the price of a cup of coffee, you can help me keep making videos just like this one. If you'd like to help out, there's a link in the description and on your screen.